Hi, and welcome to the New Property Show. I'm Steve McMenamin. On this show, Dean will give us an update on the Chelsea project, Kheng Tu and Karen on finance, and our panel will be back on the housing shortage. But first, Miriklis and Arj from the Sunnybrix Group will be discussing development and also how to buy the perfect home. Harry and Arj, welcome to the New Property Show. It's a pleasure to have you guys on as guests today.
Thanks for having us.
We're going to discuss property development and, more importantly, some funding that goes around it. Love to hear your story with really how you've got started and really some of the obstacles that you sort of found along the way. So over to you, Harry.
Okay, so before I met Arj and we got together, got to a development in Bondi Road, Bondi Beach, and we built, got plans and permits for 6 two-bedroom apartments, and then we went out to the bank and we couldn't find funding for it. And for about a year we were trying to find a way to get the funding, and then I said, I'll just sell it. So we sold it, and the people that actually purchased the property, he sold 4 off the plan to Chinese investors, and he actually profited $1 million out of that deal. And I was scratching my head for about 10 or 11 years and became educated a little bit of finding ways of getting private funding. And it was one thing that really stops a developer is to scale up in size from one project with his own money to 5 projects with other people's money. And we did this through people getting to know us, getting to understand us, trust us, and yeah, it's moving forward quite well now, and it's quite easy to raise outside capital. It's
really about relationships at the end of the day, isn't it? So people having a vision, and not everyone wants to be involved in the project but wants to see it, I guess, succeed. So that's a little way for, I guess, for them to get a piece of the pie and obviously see that through. So Arj, how did you guys meet, and have you done a project together before?
Well, yeah, we met in a property development boot camp that we attended in Brisbane. This is probably 4 years ago. So this is when Harry was from Melbourne as well. I'm from Melbourne as well. So we went there, 3 days boot camp. We got along well. It was around 40, 50 people there. And once we came back to Melbourne, I started organizing meetups for people who attended the boot camp. It was a monthly meetup. We used to meet in Chadstone coffee shop, just sort of 5, 6 of us. On a regular basis, Harry was, because I was organizing it, I was always there, and Harry was very regular there. And a year after, Harry asked me, why don't you and I just start a company?
And Arj is a systems analyst, so he's a numbers boy.
Yeah.
And I thought that's a good match.
You're more the visionary, finding the projects.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a data science degree, so I'm quite good in data side of things. So analyze and getting the research done is my strength. And he's a people's man, so he just makes sure talking to the agents, talking to potential investors, a lot of those,
And nowadays, where are your projects predominantly focused? Are you sticking with just Melbourne, Victoria, or are you looking outside of the state? Do you want to talk to us about some current projects or upcoming projects you have on the go?
Yeah, sure. I can.
So we just on COVID hit, we found a 4.3 acre property in Castlemaine, rural Victoria. Well, it worked like this. We had a certain amount of money on our own. So we found a region that fitted our money more than the other way around. So we went to Castlemaine. We purchased this property, and it's a 1 into 12 lot subdivision. It's at the moment it's 1 into 8, and the 8th block we're going to cut it up into another 5. So which is 1 into 13.
And what size block is that sitting at?
So yeah, so 4 acre block is the initial size. Yeah. Oh no, 4 acre would be 4 into 4, so 16,000
square meters. So I was thinking
roughly
4,000 to an acre.
Yep. And this block already has a house on it. So the house is a nice sort of 30 square house. We renovated the house after we bought it. So we are chopping the house on a half acre block, and rest 3.5 acres we are subdividing into 11 blocks. So each of the blocks would be ranging from around 600 to 800 square meters of land.
What sort of services are needed at Castlemaine? Are you putting in gas, Have you got sewerage? Have you got water? So you've got all the standard services required?
Yeah, because it's in a general residential zone.
Across the road is a new estate as well, so we've got to bring it under the road and up the street.
That's handy.
Yeah, it's not a green zone. It's actually a general residential zone where there are houses around it with all the connections already readily available. So all we have to do is just to make sure that we extend those connections into our subdivided blocks, and we're ready to go.
And I guess with raising capital, coming back to one of your original lessons, are you now selling off the plan these blocks at the moment? Have you got contracts of sale put together? Are you at that point yet where you're getting investors to show an expression of interest on purchasing these blocks?
Well, at this stage, we're waiting for the engineers that have got 20 minutes of work and promised us every week that it'll be stamped, the final engineers' plans. So we can't actually sell them off. We don't want to go off the plan until we get that out of the way, because it'll be a complete waste of time if there's any variance or variation. So we're just waiting for that, and every week we ring the council. But we say that we need more housing, but it's really slow. It's really a problem that a bigger picture should be able to handle and say, well, we need to streamline this business and make it more compatible or more easier for a developer to not have such holding costs eat away at his profits.
This is probably the thing I really want to talk about there is after purchasing a property, obviously you've got some civils and you've got design works to go in, there is some significant holding costs while you're waiting for the project to be delivered, especially if you meet objections. How do you sleep at night knowing those things are happening? How do you reassure your investors? And what advice would you give to potential developers, up-and-coming developers watching, to manage their cash flow with a project like this?
Yeah, so when we initially do our feasibility, we give significant amount of buffer to sort of mitigate those risks. But as you said, in spite of that, we can actually go overboard and overrun those numbers. We just update the investors about what's happening and what struggles we are facing.
And never promise them a timeline. Promise them a timeline, 12 months, and your money's going to come back. Well, you know, you're scratching your head every night trying to make sure that, because your word's your word. You know? So don't promise them a timeline. It's 2 to 3 years.
And are you still working with banks nowadays? So are you using maybe the bank for the land purchase and then OPM, so other people's money for the development costs? Or is there? So sometimes you may have the funds for the deposit. And talk to me about maybe how you might put a deal together.
Yeah, sure. So we are doing 3 deals at the moment, 3 active deals. So from the first deal to now, we've sort of become better at raising finance for doing the deal. So in the first deal, we had our own funds for putting a deposit, and we had our serviceability as well to get a traditional loan from the bank as a normal house with a land, sort of a loan, as a residential loan. So that was easy. So the next project, we went private finance. So we raised around $300,000 in capital with our investors, and then we went with the private finance to settle the deal, which is currently happening. And the third one is also similar. So we have our investors, and we're doing the project. And it's a simple 2-lot subdivision project with renovating the house and subdividing the land and selling them both.
It's a nice simple one. So you're doing a couple of big ones. And then just back to, I guess, what we initially started with, which is the 2-lotters. What do you think's more complicated?
Never pushed the envelope. At the first one, we pushed the envelope. We went in there with a 1 into 5 lot subdivision, and I kept thinking, we can get more out of this, but once you get more out of it, you take a longer time. So that was a learning curve.
Regarding the complexity, as he was saying, so we initially went with that 4-acre block, chopping only into 5 lots, which would have been much easier and simpler. The council would have approved our plans probably a year prior to what they're doing now. But the thing is, the numbers, when we put the numbers together, it's significantly beneficial to cut it into finer, smaller lots, and hence we went that way.
It's quite a big difference.
In spite of the extra time, it still is worthwhile.
Just over to our last question. Are you guys still looking for deals, always actively, even on the hunt, even though you're in them at the moment?
Yeah.
And I guess my main question then would be is, what advice would you give to a potential developer that's watching this? Sort of 3 tips that you would say before you get started.
Make sure your numbers are right and you're profitable. Pick yourself a middle of the run. If you're going to build, pick yourself a middle of the run builder. Don't go to the higher price builder or the lowest price builder, because you'll get into trouble with the bottom end. And probably, what would be the third one, Arj?
So one of our mentors, he always used to give this acronym of PTR. It's called Proven Track Record. So for even this land subdivisions, you want to find a land, size of the land, which is currently selling well in the market. That's the proven track record. So that stands actually well for anything, from the land size to the engineers you choose, the town planner you choose. You need to understand the proven track record. So someone who's starting can take that as a mantra and then just run with it. Just look for proven track record on anything that they're choosing. And if they do it, yeah, they're going to mitigate the risk quite well.
Otherwise, people, trust and rapport. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on the New Property Show.
Thank you.
And look forward to having you back soon. Dean, welcome back to the New Property Show. Great to have you back on. I want to talk about the Chelsea project, where you're up to now, and obviously taking us back to where it all began.
Yeah, beautiful, Steve. We're currently just finished framing the timber subfloor, and we've got the concrete garage down. So our next step is the plumbing rough-in, the hydronic heating, the floor insulation, and then the carpenters can continue on with the framing and then the roof and whatnot. So that's basically where we're at now. So I just wanted to go back to the start of the job, Steve. So we met the clients about a year before the build, and they'd already reached out to one of our architects that we work very closely with. And a lot of people don't realise there's actually quite a big gap before the builder gets on site. And there's a lot of documentation you need to get in place. And sometimes it can be a bit tricky for people that if they're building the first time, you know what it's like, they don't know where to go to first. But basically that process is engaging with someone that you can get to design the house for you, whether it's a draftsman or an architect, and then submitting what you're proposing to council to get it semi-approved, so you're not designing something that's just going to get knocked back, and then engaging a builder to basically quote the job, and then from there you can sort of execute the build. Now with our Chelsea job, when we first got on site, we had some protection works issues that we had to sort of overcome. One of them was that the garage slab was built too close to the boundary line, and if we were to build the house as it was proposed, we would have undermined the next door neighbour's brick fence and potentially caused damage to their property. And when you get it on site and you've got this plan to just get into it straight away and be proactive, it's kind of hard when the first thing you come across is a problem, but that's just building and there's always going to be problems. So it's just how do you tackle them as best as possible. We were able to go to the client and the architect and propose just bringing it 100 mil off the boundary, which shrunk their garage a little bit, which you'll see later. But they were still able to get a vehicle in there and comfortably open both the doors. They've got kids, so they want to be able to get prams and kids in and out and stuff like that. So it was a good solution that we had for that one. And then as we got onto the property and actually, but during the demo stage, we found that the old stormwater system, how they did it back in the day was they'd just bury a 150 litre tank in the ground and they'd run all the downpipes to that, and the water would just disperse into the sandy soil, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, so now these days it's a lot more heavily regulated, and you have to account for stuff like once in 100-year rainfalls, once in 50-year rainfalls, and once in 20-year rainfalls. So we had to go back to the civil engineer and design us something that was going to work with the new water loads coming off of the roof and driveway. And again, that's another thing that holds up the project, and it's just a matter of explaining to the clients why something isn't to code that used to be under the ground, because they don't necessarily understand that. Why can't we just use the old stormwater system? That needs to be explained to them. So that was another funny one that we came across, but we've now managed to chat to the civil engineer. They've recommended a system to us that's going to work, and we're going to get that in the ground soon. before we start framing the walls.
And do your plumbers actually assist at that point as well? So you're engaging a plumber that understands that area and location. They've obviously provided solutions before, so even though it's a first-time problem for you guys on this site, is that something that can be easily solved with the right people on your team?
Yeah, definitely. Our plumber actually suggested a second option, which would be putting a pump and pit in, which means we would have had to have bored underneath the footpath and the road, it was almost a 50-50 whether we went the in-ground system or whether we just bored under the road. But you kind of want to stay away from council assets because you have to get footpath closure permits, road closure permits, and it can get a little bit messy. So we just wanted to keep it within the property. But our plumber was awesome in assisting us with, as soon as we got the plan back from civil engineer, what they were proposing, our plumber quoted it straight away so we could give the price to the clients and say, hey guys, this is what it's going to take, this is what it's going to cost. How would you like to proceed? And it was almost their decision to just say, look, let's just move ahead with the in-ground system.
Do you want to discuss with us how you've, I guess, convinced the neighbours to build a brand new property in an existing area?
Yeah, well, the neighbours is a tricky one. So we've got a neighbour to the left, and that was the one that we didn't want to undermine their property. They're cool now. They're happy with what we've resolved. Then we have a neighbour to the right-hand side. We're pulling down a small section of fence, and they've got dogs that live on the property, so we've had to work in with them as well, make sure that we're safely pulling the fence down, working in a time that works with them, keep their kids safe, keep their dogs safe, and then erect a temporary sort of fence that's going to be okay for the meantime until the new one goes up. And then at the back of the property, the property's been split in two, and there's already an existing house in the back of the property. And we just had to be careful with where the surveying point was as to where we built up to the existing block work of the back of the house. During the time that we had to issue the protection works, the owner of the property at the back of the house was overseas. Now they have a 14-day period where they have to respond to the protection works letter, otherwise we can continue with construction. But you want to be careful there. You want to keep everyone happy. You want to make sure that when they get back from holidays, you haven't built right up to their property line. So there's a lot of things you need to double check there. We had to check the surveying point and make sure that we were building to our legal line.
Sounds very challenging so far. So you've had challenges on every single angle. You've got neighbours that are overseas. You've had to overcome some challenges in terms of your stormwater runoff. You've had to reduce the slab by 100 mil. And it's been an interesting project, but I guess this is just one property. But I guess with the advantage though of building a brand new property in an established neighbourhood should be with the new design codes that you're actually improving some of the civil works there, also the facades and the value of the properties around them, because you're actually therefore adding value with a brand new home. Have you actually had more work come off this? Have you got people coming to see you now that you've gone to site?
Yeah, we've actually had a couple of people walk off the street and just inquire, which is fantastic.
Thank you again for joining us on the New Property Show.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Welcome to the New Property Show. Thank you for joining us. So, really want to talk about, I guess, mortgage broking and brand, and how you girls work together, Karen, and really the collaboration effort. And you're really about, I guess, female empowerment. Do you want to share with us some of your goals and your mission?
Thank you so much for having us on the show. So my name's Kheng, I'm from the Finance Stand. I'm a female-led mortgage broking firm. I spent the last 2 years setting up my business so that I can start having more time towards having energy towards having women and confidence in the industry. At the moment, we're seeing about 25% of females in the industry, and there's a lot of women leaving the industry. The same amount of women and men are joining the industry, but there's a lot leaving. So we're just finding out what the pressure points are, because I think it's a wonderful industry for women to be in.
And really what sort of got you started, we're talking really off camera earlier, and we're talking about trades. We're talking about you're in year 10, year 11. The guys have got a few opportunities to go do some carpentry, bricklaying, some of the manual labours, and obviously possibly engineers. So we're talking about what's in it for females, and if you didn't want to continue on, I guess, with a business degree or a university, really, as I said, what would you do next?
Yeah, I think mortgage broking is a great opportunity for women to join the industry, because, you know, a lot of women you know, we stay at home, we look after the household, we pay the bills, we raise the children. So by nature, we're good budgeters. We know what's coming in, how much we use, what the price of groceries is, you know, the living expenses since the mortgage broking industry had the Royal Commission. So they'll be very good at filling out the forms. So I think it's a great opportunity for, like, if someone, a young year 10 wants to leave and instead of doing bricklaying or, you know, construction or anything like that, mortgage broking, flexibility, strategic management, budgeting, finance, I think it's something that women are really good skill sets at.
And how do you think you'll lead the way there? You've got a pretty ambitious goal in the next 10 years. For people that are looking to get into mortgage broking, though, you're looking to hire, I guess, a large variety of different females and professionals. Do you want to share with us, you've had a recent hire recently too? Yeah,
so I'm having my first female mortgage broker join my business. I'm super excited. I've done a lot of interviews and a lot of data analysis as to what women are looking for, and what I find is what the idea they think a mortgage broker is, and they think that if you're good at credit, that you're good at being a mortgage broker. But as you know, in every business, a mortgage broker is a small business, right? As long as you're helping people and you're good at networking and trying to get them to the house that they're after, or, you know, better interest rates or wealth for their family, which is something I think women are big on family, not that I'm saying men aren't. That's why I think women need to lift instead of being good, you know, credit writers, go out there and see and talk to people and say, hey, you know, networking with other people and see what the men in the industry are currently already doing, like a lot of networking. That's what it is for a mortgage broker.
I'm seeing that too. I see you guys work together. So Karen, you're I guess a buyer's agent or advocate, and you've been in the industry for a while now. Quite a success story behind the scenes also. Do you want to maybe just speak to us with the viewers, so what you're doing and what you're seeing and how you guys are working together now?
Terrific. Yeah, I joined the industry approximately 15 years ago, and at that time there were probably only 10 buyers advocates across 3 different organisations in Victoria and Melbourne. Why I joined was really because I saw a huge gap for people in terms of the information that they had available to them to make really good purchase decisions. And that gap wasn't just a lack of information, but probably in a lot of cases not the correct kind of information as well, or not correct information. So that's what saw me take the leap. I'd previously been purchasing for myself for 20 years prior to that time. And yeah, I like to think I do things quite differently, and as a woman I bring something more to the buyer's advocacy process, in terms of we really get into people's lives. Purchasing family homes, purchasing your first home, purchasing even an investment property really is all about trying to understand and really cater for where couples, where singles, where they're going in their lives. So we take a really personalised approach to understanding where people are going to be in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years. And we do all of these things so that they obviously grow confidence with us through that time, but also to make sure, you know, it's a big purchase. We want it to be right emotionally. And we don't want them to need to change because they haven't considered something sometime down the track.
So I guess what you're saying there is the house is really just one part of the purchase. It's really the mindset that we touch on in this show. Really, it's what the emotional decisions that go behind there, and it's not just the location and the price, but it's more about the goal. So I would almost ascertain, or you're more like a mentor and a friend to your clients first, and then the property second. For somebody that's, I guess, trying to engage your services, how would they normally come about you?
My business tends to come actually via referral. I think that's one of the benefits of having been involved in the industry for so long now, that there's many people that I've helped. In fact, there's, you know, well over 1,000 homes that I've purchased for people over that period of time.
Incredible.
So yeah, very much it'll be word of mouth. So someone will have utilised my services before and hear about someone having trouble and say, please go and talk to Karen. As part of what we do in that process is to make sure that we put the best team around people, and that's very much where Kheng comes in to other services. She's one of the best mortgage brokers I've been able to encounter, and I know that with people like Kheng particularly on their team, they're going to be really well looked after. And this is really important. It's not a transaction. It's an enormous financial decision. It has enormous emotional outlays, and we want to really get it right.
Have you purchased a few houses at auction before?
A few, yeah. I love Saturdays. They're my favourite day of the week. Bring on game day.
I thought it might be. I think you girls would be out there with your lattes out there just putting in bids. The action, I think the Saturdays are the fun part, but you also, it's a good read of the market too, with where the pricing's going, what's selling, what's not. Girls, you've been fantastic. Love the mission, and we look forward to seeing you again on the New Property Show.
Thank you so much for having us, Steve.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, panel. This week's topic is the housing shortage, both for buyers and renters. It's caused a lot of, I guess, heat in the press. Pricing seems to be getting more expensive. The lines are getting bigger. There's a few deals that are done behind the scenes. A little bit of gazumping. And anything else you want to add, Kaz?
I'm just seeing and quite astonished, I guess, at the number of bidders that are at auction, or whether it's an auction or a private bid. Since the beginning of the year, really, the housing shortage and the shortage of supply probably been competing against 5 to 10 who actually show their hand at any one time, which is extraordinary, and that brings price growth with it as well. A lot of competition and price growth, which people have to be really careful about to not go totally over the odds.
It becomes a real problem for renters. A lot of bedrooms are empty, which is probably something that we could look at how to fill bedrooms in houses where there's one person and 4 bedrooms that are empty. We're probably building the wrong product, and the amount of time that it takes to build that product is killing the supply as well. So the new open spaces on a block of land is restricting how many units you can put on the block of land, so it affects your costings, so it affects your profit, and then at the end of the day, you just give up building because it's not a profitable exercise in a city of Melbourne where if you have to move, you have to look at regional, and people don't want to move to regional; they want to live in Melbourne. So, well, they did for a couple of months, but
It's really redefining, I think, the way that people have to think about property, because we've always had like the great Australian dream in mind. I think that's been something that's really throughout generations been what Melburnians, particularly Australians, have been really keen on. With what's going on at the moment, as I understand it, there are still a number of empty or vacant apartments waiting to change, and that mindset potentially is going to have to change in buyers to not be looking for something with land, but to move into an apartment and sort of infill what's already there in the cities, and will probably change the price of apartments over time. I think the biggest thing is it probably push apartments up, but I think when you're finding there's a housing shortage, that's actually the bottom end of the market actually gets a lot of growth, because it's rising, so cost of living's there, but also it's almost could be almost a negative. It can be almost, I guess, disenchanting if you're trying to get into a property and you're trying, you're renting. You now can't get into a rental property, so then you decide to buy, and you're turning up, and it's almost like, what do I do next? In some cases, it actually almost can turn into homelessness. It's a different subject, but the cost of living itself is getting more expensive. But I think where the issues may also sit is 3 to 5 years from now. If we're feeling the heat right now with rising interest rates, a shortage of homes, I'm hearing a lot of new builders, as much as we've got a shortage, they're not building as many homes.
Exactly,
and with migrants coming over, I think we're going to have significant issues. What are you feeling?
Yeah, with some of the builders actually going under at the moment, the last 1 year, the confidence of people to build in this current market has actually gone down significantly. So not many people are looking into buying land and building new houses. That's again one of the contributors for this housing shortage. On top of it, we have students coming back in and immigration coming back to how it was before. So it's pushing the demand high, but the supply is not enough to meet it. So it's eventually going to go into a even more crisis, is what I feel.
What about you, Kat? What are you finding with, I guess, with lending as well? The banks aren't holding the approvals as long.
Well, no, they're not, and I think that's going to start changing a lot more in the next couple of months or next couple of years, I'd say. The other thing as well, though, is that it's so important to make sure that you've actually got a pre-approval in place, even though not at all banks will that hold. But at the same time, at least if you've got that, when you do find a property, you can go straight in and make that offer. and you can have no subject to finance clause, which obviously makes the vendor happier as well and happy to settle the deal, and it's done.
Especially
So-
things like auctions.
Exactly.
You really can't
100%.
go in there and be interesting to hear. Have you ever come across people who've actually gone in, bid on a property and never really, and not actually had their finance in?
As a buyer's advocate, I only work with people who do have a pre-approval in place, or if I've got a line into the mortgage broker and at least know we're pretty much
Where they're
okay,
at.
we're all right.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the advantages of working with a buyer's advocate who's been around for a while and understands things depending on the property and the market, I have actually shown up at an auction not so long ago in Albert Park actually, where I was pretty confident that there was no one else that was there on the day to bid, and my buyer hadn't had a pre-approval and coming in until the next week. And because of the relationship with the agent had said, look, you know, we want to buy this property, but we're not ready to buy today. If you pass it in, I'm going to be there. And although an auction is unconditional, I did with this agent manage for this buyer to be the person to negotiate after, and I negotiated it subject to finance
Yeah.
Was
on
that
auction
immediately
day.
after the auction?
It was immediately after the auction. After an auction, all bets are off. You can negotiate whatever it is that you want to negotiate. And I guess that's where myself having known this agent for a long time, and him knowing that I wouldn't be dealing with someone who wasn't going to come through with the goods in the absence of there being anyone else there on that particular day.
It's definitely the
that,
one percenter.
It is a 1%er, yeah, but you know what you know. It's not, we do it thousands of times, not singularly like most buyers do.
So what do you think's causing the housing shortage? Like, whose fault is it? Is it just the fact we don't have enough houses going on the market? Is it landlords are getting too greedy? What is it?
I've got a view on this. A lot of vendors, as I'm told, are very reluctant to pop their homes onto the market because they're worried with the shortage that they won't actually be able to get back in themselves.
Yeah.
So never in my career have I worked with as many sellers and buyers who are utilising or trying to utilise bridging finance so that they can get out and get in the same market.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really what's holding people back is where are they going to go? What if they can't buy? It's scary.
Yeah.
And they can't rent.
They can't rent.
They can't rent because I get more phone calls for people looking for places to rent, and you can't actually do anything, even though you know the agents really well.
Yeah.
You can't do anything because they're like, let's say their income is 100,000 and someone's got 170,000 income. They're gazumped. They're not in the game to be able to rent the property. And so I've got a father, daughter and a granddaughter, and they're going to sell their property they're in. They've been there for 10 years and he's got nowhere to go. He has to move like 15 k's away from where he lives now.
I think too, look, I've been over the years a landlord, many times. But getting a rental property, and no offence to the rental agents that's watching, but filling in those one forms and those other things is literally harder to fill in one of those and get a passport. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And especially too, if you're if you're 50 plus and technology is not your thing, getting digital ID certifications, declaring income, you might be in a good position. It's actually fairly complex, especially if you haven't been in the rental market before. And I think really the key there would be, once again, is who knows you. Is always a good reference.
Yeah, I was working with some people who needed to purchase, find a rental recently, and they came to me knowing that they've got a number of relationships in industry with agency owners. I can tell you it doesn't really help having it all. You've got to get in the queue with everybody else. It's extremely difficult, and I really feel for these people. There is going to be homelessness. There's a lot of stress. For renters particularly.
Yeah, the rents have gone up significantly as well. In the area that we live in, it's nearly 25% gone up in just 1 year. So it's crazy.
But I have read somewhere that there was a time there that rents weren't moving at all, and we're just sort of catching up
To make up for that.
make up for the time that it wasn't moving. So
I've got another theory.
that's another theory. That's right. It's another theory.
What's your theory?
The theory actually picks up on what you said, that rents hadn't gone up in a long time, and this is going to be very controversial to our real estate agents that are watching, but it's very much worth the real estate agents' while as they get a percentage of the amount of rent that's achieved on each home for properties to go up. And I do wonder, I'd really like to get in underneath the data. Maybe you'll be able to help help us with your analysis, but vacancy rates in Melbourne aren't as low as they could be. So there is so much in the press about and hundreds of people showing up and rents going up, but I look at the vacancy rates and go, it's not stacking up for me. There's still a lot of vacant property out there. So
I think with that said though, that'd be the good properties are gone and the bad ones have left, and that's always the case.
True. It's all about
There's
location.
plenty of restaurants out there that where the meals are a quarter of the price and they don't get
any
They
don't get
exactly
people
showing
up.
up.
Definitely.
But I think that the way that people live needs to change. So I'm sort of just going to wrap this up in a moment, but really, what's one thing that you could do to ease the pressure? What would you offer people that are watching that are struggling at the moment and need to get into the market, don't know what to do next? Who do they call?
I can, from property development background, things from the council need to move fast so that we can, as property developers, we can actually bring products to market faster, sooner. So I would say things need to move fast in the council.
But having said that, it keeps the price up. Scarcity keeps the price up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you
There's
imagine
more demand than supply.
so you imagine a flood of apartments or units or whatever hits the market all in one go, then the price would drop. So there's got to be some sort of a balance between time and getting the permits through.
It's almost a intentional manipulation then.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Exactly.
That's it. What do you think?
But with that new scheme as well for the build to rent, it's going to be interesting to see how that changes the market as well now. So once that gets applied, there's going to be a lot more people incentivised to actually get into that market.
I think that's a great idea. Is really just a new scheme. So build to rent from you,
And if we go back to the old and established property, if you're a buyer and you're looking to buy in a situation where there are many other buyers, get yourself a buyer's advocate who knows
100%.
how to negotiate and what to do. We rarely miss out because we show up at an auction knowing how much it is that we're really going to have to pay. Forget the quote price. We know what it is that we have to do and how it is that we have to bid, and how it is that we have to bid changes from one auction to another.
I think also opening your mind to other markets that are actually across the country. So you can still get into the market. It's not all about Victoria or Sydney or wherever you're based.
Or rent-vest if you can't be a home
100%,
buyer.
There's so many ways to actually grow your wealth by rent vesting that people don't realise the cost, the opportunity cost that they've missed out on in the end.
So I think what I'm hearing here is just having the right people on your team, the right advice, knowing you're not doing it alone.
Exactly.
And if not, give Kaz a call. But you guys have been great guests today on the New Property Show. Really great topic. But really, let's hope that the pressure eases. And everybody, I think there's always a home. You just got to have the heart to find it. Thank you.
Right people around you and you'll be there.
And don't look for 3 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms.
Well, thank you for joining us on the New Property Show. Great debate. Really enjoyed our topic today. But I think, obviously, there's a home for everybody, but it's all about having the heart to find it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
very much,
you.
Steve.
That's all for this week. Thank you for joining us. If you want to see the full interviews, check out our website, thenewpropertyshow.tv. We'll see you next week.